In 2006, you could walk into almost any sport bike dealership in America and find 5 different 600 cubic centimeter inline-4 Supersports lined up on the showroom floor. The Yamaha R6, the Honda CBR600RR, the Suzuki GSX-R600, the Kawasaki ZX-6R, and if the dealer was feeling fancy, a Triumph Daytona 675 tucked in the corner. Every single one of them screamed past 14,000 revolutions per minute, made north of 110 horsepower, and cost less than a used Honda Civic. Walk into that same dealership today, and the class that used to dominate the floor is barely hanging on. The Yamaha R6 is dead for the street. The Honda CBR600RR still technically exists in America, but it is running on a platform from over a decade ago, while Europe gets the updated version. The Suzuki GSX-R600 is so forgotten that its own manufacturer barely bothers promoting it, and the Kawasaki ZX-6R, the last one that actually got a real update, just got hit with a major stop-ride recall covering 20,300 units. The way this happened tells you everything about where motorcycling is headed next, because the 600 did not die from one thing. It got hit from 5 different directions at the same time. And what replaced it? 3 brand new motorcycles that might actually be better than anything the 600 class ever produced. But we will get to those in a minute. First, you need to understand what we actually lost. The modern 600 cubic centimeter Supersport was born in 1999 when Yamaha rolled out the YZF R6 at a motorcycle show in Paris. Yamaha claimed 120 horsepower at the crank, making it the first 600 cubic centimeter production 4-stroke to hit that number, and the motorcycle press lost their minds over it. Cycle World called it the first production motorcycle to deliver 200 brake horsepower per liter. The R6 weighed barely 400 pounds wet, revved to nearly 16,000 revolutions per minute, and handled like it was running on rails. Yamaha had essentially built a race bike with headlights and a license plate bracket. Honda saw what Yamaha did and answered in 2003 with the CBR600RR. This was not some corporate reaction. Honda designed the CBR with direct influence from its RC211V MotoGP program. Their own press materials said engineers could trace a line directly from the CBR to the championship-winning RC211V. They gave it Unit Pro Link rear suspension, center-up exhaust routing, and a motor so over-engineered that it would go on to win 8 World Supersport Rider Championships. The R6 claimed 10 World SSP titles of its own and racked up an absurd 60 out of 66 Moto America Supersport wins from 2015 to 2018. The racing was driving the development, and the development was selling the bikes. Then Kawasaki updated the ZX-6R, Suzuki sharpened the GSX-R600, and Triumph dropped the Daytona 675 triple with that gorgeous exhaust note that still makes people stop mid-sentence. We had 5 manufacturers pouring millions into development, updating their 600s on 2-year cycles, and pushing each other to build faster, lighter, more technologically advanced machines every single season. Technologies like ride-by-wire throttle, slipper clutches, variable intake systems, and radial mount brakes appeared on 600 cubic centimeter Supersports before they trickled down to any other category. The annual 600 cubic centimeter shootout was basically the Super Bowl of motorcycle journalism. And if you are old enough to remember what these bikes felt like, you already know what I am talking about. That screaming inline-4 climbing through 12,000 revolutions per minute on a back road. The lightness, the precision. Walking out of the dealership at 21 years old with the keys to an R6 in your pocket felt like holding a winning lottery ticket. These were not just motorcycles. They were the entry point to an entire culture of track days, knee-dragging on canyon roads, and lying to your insurance company about how often you actually ride. The peak hit between 2005 and 2008. In the UK alone, those 5-core 600 cubic centimeter models combined for 8,105 registrations in 2006. Yamaha claimed the 600cc segment made up 51% of the entire Supersport market and had grown 52% since 2001. Across the United States, total motorcycle sales reached 1,022,332 units in 2006, with sport bikes accounting for roughly 1 in 5 sales. Magazines could not publish shootouts fast enough. Track day organizations were booked solid. Then, the 2008 financial crisis hit, and the buyers never came back. The first thing that killed the 600 cubic centimeter class was emissions regulation out of the European Union. Euro 5 went into effect on January 1st, 2020, and it slashed allowable hydrocarbon emissions down to 100 milligrams per kilometer from the previous 170. Nitrogen oxide limits dropped from 90 milligrams to 60. That might sound like boring policy stuff, but for a high-revving inline 4 motorcycle engine, those numbers were devastating. A 600 cubic centimeter Supersport motor lives at the top of the tachometer. That's where the power is, that's the whole point. And at 14,000 revolutions per minute with aggressive valve overlap, these engines are simply much harder to clean up at the top end than lower revving twins or triples. Meeting Euro 5 meant adding pre-catalysts for fast light-off, larger main catalysts, dual lambda sensors, ride-by-wire systems, and extensive engine recalibration. The development cost approached what it takes to build a liter bike. But a liter bike sells for $17,000 to $20,000 with fat margins. A 600 sold for $10,000 to $12,000 with margins so thin they'd make a grocery store jealous. The math simply didn't work. By the mid-2010s, manufacturers were spending nearly as much to develop a 600 as a 1,000 cubic centimeter bike, while selling fewer and fewer units every year at lower price points. As Asphalt and Rubber reported, Yamaha simply could not build the R6 for a reasonable price if the bikes were only coming to the United States. Euro 5 Plus arrived on January 1st, 2025, adding real-world catalyst durability testing over 35,000 kilometers and mandatory OBD2 monitoring. It did not tighten the emissions numbers much, but it added compliance costs that made the math even worse. The second kill was collapsing sales. Remember those 8,105 UK registrations for the 5-core 600cc models in 2006? By 2017, that number had fallen to just 716. That is a 91% decline in 11 years. The MV Agusta F3 675 registered exactly 8 units in the UK during its final year. 8. In America, sport bike sales dropped 60% after the recession. The buyers who left in 2008 simply found other things to spend their money on, and the generation behind them never showed up. Meanwhile, adventure bikes were exploding. BMW's R1300 GS and GS Adventure sold a combined 66,125 units in 2025 alone, roughly a third of BMW's entire motorcycle output. The GS family had been one of the world's dominant large-capacity motorcycle platforms for years. Adventure bikes globally represent a market projected to grow from $14 billion in 2024 to over $25 billion by 2035. The money was not leaving motorcycling, it was leaving supersports. The third kill was insurance. For riders under 25, full coverage on a 600cc Supersport can easily run $1,500 to $2,500 a year or more, depending on the state. That is 2 to 3 times what you would pay on a standard motorcycle and significantly more than insuring a cruiser. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found that Supersport riders had fatal crash rates roughly 4 times higher than riders on cruiser and standard motorcycles, with a median fatality age of just 27. Insurers did the math and priced accordingly. For a 21-year-old rider, insuring an R6 often cost enough to kill the purchase before it ever happened. The premiums reflected the risk profile, and the young riders who once flocked to showrooms found that a Ninja 400 with full coverage still cost less than an R6 with liability only. The fourth kill was demographics. The median age of a U.S. motorcycle owner was 27 years old in 1985. By 2003, it was 41. By 2018, it was roughly 50. Riders under 18 fell from 8% of the market to just 2%. Riders aged 18 to 24 dropped from 16% to 6%. Meanwhile, riders aged 45 to 64 became the dominant buying demographic, and older riders increasingly outnumbered younger ones by wide margins. A 50-year-old with a bad back and a mortgage does not want to fold himself into a race crouch for 3 hours. He wants a BMW GS Adventure with heated grips and a comfortable seat. Yamaha's own product manager stated at the MT-09 launch in Japan, that buyers are moving away from supersport bikes. When the manufacturer says it publicly, you know the data behind closed doors is brutal. The fifth and final kill came from Europe's A2 licensing system, implemented in 2013. Under the tiered licensing directive, riders as young as 18 are restricted to motorcycles producing no more than 47 horsepower. And because A2 bikes can only be restricted from models making no more than about 95 horsepower unrestricted, a 120 plus horsepower inline 4 600cc Supersport is completely excluded. This regulation did not just discourage young riders from buying 600cc bikes, it made the entire category invisible to them. An entire generation of new European motorcyclists grew up riding A2-compliant twins and triples like the Yamaha MT-07, the Kawasaki Z650, and the Ninja 400. They never even considered a 600cc Supersport because they literally could not ride one. And the MT-07 specifically deserves mention here. That one bike, Yamaha's little 689cc parallel twin, has sold over 160,000 units since 2014 and has been Europe's best-selling naked motorcycle every single year since launch. It is affordable, it is A2 compliant when restricted, and it is genuinely fun to ride. For the generation that should have been buying R6s, the MT-07 became the default first real bike. And many of them never felt the need to upgrade to a Supersport. So how did each bike actually meet its end? The Yamaha R6 had the cleanest death. Yamaha announced the R6 would no longer be street legal after the 2020 model year, citing evolving global market trends and regulations. The R6 became a track-only machine in January 2021 in Europe as the R6 Race, and in April 2022 in the US as the R6 GYTR, priced at $18,399. That is a $6,200 premium over the last street bike's $12,199 sticker. The GYTR came loaded with an Akrapovic race exhaust, a dedicated ECU, full bodywork, and a 520 chain conversion. Yamaha basically said, look, we cannot make this bike meet emissions for what you are willing to pay, but if you want to race it, here it is. The Honda CBR 600RR has the weirdest story of the bunch. Honda dropped the CBR from Europe after 2016 because it could not justify Euro 4 compliance costs. The US kept selling an essentially unchanged 2013 platform, same engine, same chassis, fresh paint each year. Then in 2020, Honda Japan unveiled a dramatically updated CBR 600RR with winglets, a 5-axis inertial measurement unit, cornering ABS, and ride-by-wire. Motorcycle fans in America were thrilled. And then American Honda explicitly stated they had no plans to sell that model in the US. The updated version eventually reached Europe in 2024 with full Euro 5 Plus compliance. So right now, two entirely different CBR 600 RRs exist at the same time. Europe gets the cutting-edge 2024 machine with winglets and cornering ABS. America gets a fossil that Honda did not even bother giving a new color for 2026. They just reprinted the year on the website. If you are an American rider looking at the Honda website right now and wondering why your CBR 600RR looks like a time capsule from the Obama administration, that is why. Honda decided updating it for the US market was not worth the investment. Let that context sink in for a second. One of the most iconic motorcycle models in history was essentially abandoned by Honda America, without saying so. The Suzuki GSX-R600 was never officially discontinued in America. Suzuki pulled it from Europe after 2016 when it could not meet Euro 4, and it has not come back. In the US, the bike soldiers on at $12,199 on a platform last meaningfully updated in 2011. Top Speed noted that even Suzuki does not publicize its existence anymore. There is no track-only version, no special edition, no fanfare. It just sits on the website like a motorcycle that does not know it is already dead. The Kawasaki Ninja ZX-6R is the lone survivor that actually tried. Kawasaki pulled it from Europe around 2020, then brought it back with a comprehensive 2024 overhaul featuring revised cam profiles, reworked intake and exhaust systems, a new TFT display, and electronic rider aids. Power dropped from 131 horsepower to 122 horsepower in the process of meeting Euro 5. Dealers were moving them. Until November 2025 it was working, and dealers were moving them. Then Kawasaki issued a stop-ride recall covering approximately 20,301 units across 2024 through 2026 models due to a crankshaft bearing that could seize. That is not a great look for the last traditional 600 standing. Now, the part you've been waiting for. What replaced them? If you're the kind of rider who actually cares about where the sport bike world is going, hit subscribe. I break down what's actually happening in the motorcycle industry every week. Not press release regurgitation, but real analysis with real data. Now let's talk about the three bikes fighting for the crown. Three motorcycles are fighting for the crown of the new middleweight Supersport class, and none of them use an inline four. They all use twin or triple cylinder engines between 890 and 947 cubic centimeters. And they represent three completely different philosophies of what a modern sport bike should be. One comes from the company that killed the R6, one comes from a brand that nearly went bankrupt before it could deliver, and one comes from Italy's most famous motorcycle maker, which threw away its own signature technology to build it. This is the new Supersport war, and it's just getting started. The Yamaha R9 is the people's champion. It runs an 890 cubic centimeter CP3 inline triple, the same engine family that powers the wildly popular MT-09, but housed in a dedicated Delta Box aluminum frame that weighs just 9.7 kilograms, about 10% lighter than the MT-09's frame. Peak output is 117 horsepower at 10,000 revolutions per minute and 69 pound-feet of torque at 7,000 revolutions per minute. That matches the old R6's peak power, but the delivery is completely different. Instead of a top-end rush that kicks in above 10,000 revolutions per minute, the R9 gives you fat, usable torque from about 4,000 revolutions per minute all the way to redline. The electronic suite comes straight from the Yamaha R1 Superbike with a 6-axis inertial measurement unit, 9 levels of traction control, slide control, launch control, and a bi-directional quickshifter. Brakes are Brembo Stylema monoblocks. Wet weight is 430 pounds. US price is $12,499 for the 2026 model, which added a 70th anniversary edition livery. On track, most reviewers came away saying the same thing. The R9 is easier to ride fast than the R6 ever was. Australian testers lapped it at Phillip Island's South Circuit, matching solid R6 track day pace, and the universal conclusion was that, with aftermarket suspension and sticky tires, the R9 would be faster than the old 600 in most riders' hands thanks to that exploitable mid-range torque. And then the racing results came in and shut down every remaining skeptic. The Yamaha R9 won its very first World Supersport race at Phillip Island in February 2025. Stefano Manzi then clinched the 2025 World Supersport Riders' Championship aboard the R9 with 17 wins from 24 races. Yamaha secured its record 11th manufacturer's title with 3 rounds to spare in its debut season on a brand new platform. Yeah. The KTM 990 RCR is the track weapon with a wild backstory, and I should clear something up first. A lot of people call this a V-twin. It is not. KTM's own spec sheet lists it as a 947 cubic centimeters parallel twin with a 285-degree crank firing order that mimics V-twin character and sound. The cylinders sit side by side. The 990 RCR makes 128 horsepower at 9,500 RPM and 76 pound-feet of torque at 6,750 RPM, making it the most powerful of the 3 new middleweights. The chassis is a chromium molybdenum steel trellis frame with the engine as a stressed member. Brakes are Brembo high-pure calipers, the next-generation successor to the Stylema that debuted on the Ducati Panigale 5 4S. And the dashboard is an absolutely massive 8.8-inch touchscreen TFT, the biggest in the entire Supersport class. Wet weight matches the R9 at 430 pounds. US price is $13,949, with a stripped-down track version at $16,499. There is one controversy worth mentioning. KTM sells a tech pack for $899 that unlocks track riding modes, a quick shifter, and cruise control. All of those features are active for the first 1,500 kilometers in a demo mode, then they deactivate unless you buy the pack. Yes, the features are already on the bike, you just have to pay to keep them turned on. Revzilla's Zach Kortz lapped the 990 RCR at Circuito de Sevilla in 1 minute 48.6 seconds, compared to 1 minute 50.2 seconds on the Ducati Panigale 5.2S at the same track, a gap of 1.6 seconds. Those were not back-to-back same-day tests with identical conditions, so the comparison is not perfect, but every reviewer praised the KTM's braking as beyond stellar and the chassis as confidence-inspiring. Now the elephant in the room. KTM nearly went bankrupt before this bike made it to market. Parent company Purer Mobility filed for self-administration in late 2024. Production halted entirely. The 990 RCR, originally scheduled for early 2025, was delayed 9 months. India's Bajaj Auto committed 800 million euros in funding, acquired a majority stake, and the parent company was officially renamed Bajaj Mobility AG in January 2026. Group motorcycle sales dropped roughly 28% in 2025 compared to the prior year. The 990 RCR finally entered production in October 2025 and reached dealerships as a 2026 model. It is basically the flagship of KTM's entire recovery plan. The Ducati Panigale V2 is the premium option that rewrote its own rulebook. The 2025 model is a ground-up redesign that shares essentially nothing with the outgoing 955 cubic centimeters Panigale, and Ducati did something that shocked the entire motorcycle world. They dropped desmodromic valve actuation from a sport bike for the first time in decades, switching to conventional spring-actuated valves with DLC-coated finger followers and a hydraulic intake variable timing system. Displacement shrank from 955 cubic centimeters to 890 cubic centimeters. Power dropped from 155 horsepower to 120 horsepower. Ducati's head of engine management stated publicly that this is not a superbike engine, but something built to be fun for the road. The new V2 delivers 70% of peak torque at just 3,000 revolutions per minute and maintains over 80% from 3,500 all the way to 11,000. The engine weighs just 54.5 kilograms, nearly 22 pounds lighter than the motor it replaces. The Panigale V2 is also significantly lighter than both competitors on paper. The base model weighs 395 pounds dry, and the V2S comes in at 388 pounds dry. Those are dry numbers though, and the R9 and KTM are quoted wet, so the gap closes once you add fuel and fluids. Still, the Ducati is the lightest of the three by a meaningful margin when you compare them all on equal terms. The monocoque aluminum frame weighs just 4 kilograms. Brakes are Brembo M50 monoblocks on the base, and the V2S gets full Öhlins suspension front and rear. US price is $15,995 for the base and $18,995 for the V2S, making it the most expensive of the three by a meaningful margin. In Motorcycle.com's three-way shootout at Sonoma Raceway between the Panigale V2, the Yamaha R9, and a Suzuki GSX-R600, the Ducati took the overall win. Riders lapped consistently faster on the Panigale and then just as easily rode it home on public roads. The tester noted the V2 felt equally at home carving canyons or running hot laps, which was never something you could say about the old 600s without lying. At Ducati's own test at Vallelunga Circuit in Italy, their factory test rider lapped only 0.2 seconds slower than the outgoing 155 horsepower model, attributing the near parity to improved agility and braking despite 35 fewer horsepower on paper. That's the whole thesis of this new generation summed up in one data point: less peak power, more usable everywhere. So the new middleweight class is legit. These aren't consolation prizes. They're genuinely fast, genuinely capable, and genuinely more practical than the old 600s ever were. The R9 proved it can win championships. The KTM posted a striking lap time comparison against the Ducati at the same Spanish circuit, even if the tests weren't directly back-to-back. The Ducati proved it can dominate a shootout and ride home comfortably. All three cost between $12,499 and $15,995, which is roughly what the old 600s cost at the end of their lives, but with dramatically more technology. Now here is the question nobody in the motorcycle industry wants to answer. Are litter bikes next? The pattern that destroyed the 600 cubic centimeter class is already creeping upward. The Yamaha R1, which remains street legal in the United States at $19,199, was pulled from European road sales starting in 2025, after Yamaha declined to develop a Euro 5 Plus version. The Suzuki GSX-R1000 left Europe around 2022, but it still lingers in the United States on a 2017 platform. According to the MIC 2025 report, off-highway capable motorcycles as a whole, including adventure, dual sport, and trail bikes, gained 8 percentage points of market share since 2019. Sport bikes actually gained 7 points in the same period, but the MIC was clear that all of that sport bike growth came from models under 750 cubic centimeters. Affordable middleweights like the Ninja 400, the Yamaha R7, and the Aprilia RS 660 drove every point of gain, not traditional 600 cubic centimeter or 1,000 cubic centimeter supersports. Phil West, writing in Visor Down's widely discussed analysis, argued that superbikes may be heading down a similar path, chasing narrow track-focused extremes to such a degree that they evolved themselves into irrelevance for street riders. But the superbike picture is more complicated than a simple repeat. Honda poured serious money into updating the CBR 1000 RRR Fireblade SP for 2025 at $28,999, and it is fully Euro 5 Plus compliant. Kawasaki unveiled an updated 2026 ZX-10R with winglets and a second oxygen sensor for Euro 5 Plus. Suzuki announced a returning 2026 or 2027 GSX-R1000, and Suzuki's president told Motorcycle News that they believe bringing supersport motorcycles to market is important, even while adapting to new regulations. The most interesting signal came from EICMA 2025 in Milan, where Yamaha's European Director for Land Mobility said that growth in the mid-cc sport bike category is now putting light back on full-size superbikes, and that Yamaha is re-evaluating what to do. Yamaha's European President Olivier Prévost went further, saying that just coming back with the current R1 and Euro 5 Plus certification is not enough. They need to bring something new, with a step up in performance and handling. He confirmed the current 4-cylinder engine is not obsolete. No V4 was officially confirmed despite widespread speculation. But Yamaha strongly signaled that 4-cylinder superbikes are still part of its future thinking. The wildcard is Euro 6 for motorcycles, which is still not finalized but is expected later this decade, probably around 2028 to 2030. If it lands with particulate number requirements, high-performance engines could face an even tougher road than Euro 5 ever created. Honda's V3 RE compressor concept shown at EICMA 2025, a V3 engine with electric supercharging offering the performance of a 1,200 cubic centimeter motor with the efficiency of a 900 cubic centimeter motor, might preview how manufacturers plan to survive the next wave of regulations. The 600 cubic centimeter Supersport's death was not an engineering failure. These were some of the finest motorcycles ever built. The R6's intake howl at 14,000 revolutions per minute on a racetrack, the CBR 600RR's surgical precision through a fast chicane, the GSX-R600's bulletproof reliability, and the ZX-6R's mid-corner stability. These bikes earned every ounce of the love that riders still feel for them. What killed them was a market correction 2 decades in the making, accelerated by regulation, and sealed by the simple fact that the riders who loved these bikes got older, and the riders who would have replaced them found better options or could not afford the insurance to ride them. What replaced the 600s is, honestly, better for most riders most of the time. The R9 won a world championship in its first season. The KTM posted a lap time 1.6 seconds quicker than the Ducati at the same Spanish circuit in RevZilla's separate tests. The Ducati won a 3-way shootout at Sonoma Raceway and then rode home on public streets without breaking anyone's wrists. All three make similar power through torque-rich engines that reward smooth riding rather than 14,000 RPM screaming. All three have superbike-level electronics that the old 600s could only dream of, and KTM's valve check interval is 37,000 miles. Try getting that from an R6. But something was lost too. There is no replacing the sound of an inline 4 at full song, that metallic wail that climbs and climbs and climbs until it sounds like the engine is trying to escape the motorcycle. The new bikes are better tools. The old bikes were something closer to religion. The real question is not whether the 600cc Supersport is dead. That argument is over. The question is whether this new generation of middleweights can save the superbike class above it, or whether the same 5 forces that killed the 600 are just working their way up the food chain, picking off the leader bikes one by one. If you ride sport bikes, or you grew up wanting to, this channel covers what is actually happening in the motorcycle industry every week. If this video earned your attention, subscribe and I will keep showing up.